Me, Generation Dan. Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome to Last Minute History, the podcast run by two people who got a C in history. I'm Atlas Novak. That's Cole Clayton. I don't know which way I'm pointing.
I am Cole Clayton. And by the way, I had commended performance in history. Thank you very much.
Really? What does commended performance mean?
I think it just means you got like a 95 on the standardized test.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
95 or above, but I don't know. I didn't learn anything. It just hit the right. A, C, B. If you don't know the answer, it's probably C.
Yeah, or it's like, all right, I don't know. The point is that if you might notice from the background today with the bars of gold, today we're going to be talking about something that is very special to my heart and every other Californian who listens to this podcast, which is the California Gold Rush. Do you know anything about the California Gold Rush, Cole?
I know that, like, honestly, that's what led to like the population of the Midwest. I know there's a lot of people who were like, "We're going to go to California," and then they're like, oh, "No, not like we're going to stop here in Nebraska or whatever." You know, like
That's actually not something that I had researched or thought of. I thought it was like, I know a good chunk of it came from like beer brewing. Like you had a lot of people who from Europe who came to the US and were like, we want to brew beer, and then like the climate of the Midwest was good enough for that sort of thing. Because this is before refrigeration.
I didn't know that.
You have the cold enough winters where you can just keep your
That
stuff.
That does make sense because we have a heavy drinking culture in the Midwest.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I do know that what little I do know about the California Gold Rush is that that's what moved a lot of people from the original 13 colonies to the middle America that we know.
Right,
You know,
like post-Louisiana Purchase, right?
Yeah, stuff like that. Well, was the Louisiana Purchase was, I guess it was around the same time.
It was 1803, and it was because Napoleon was starting to lose in Europe, and he's like, I can't have these French territories and lose the war and then have to give that territory up to whoever beats me. So he sold it to Thomas Jefferson for like super cheap, just to get it off his ass. And I assume for money, right? Like just so you have money to.
Well, yeah, and the Americans were allies to the French too at the time, so.
Yeah, because the French helped us with the Revolutionary War, and then that's what led to the Revolution, which led to Napoleon. It all kind of, fits together. But the California Gold Rush is something that every child in California school, public and private, I've been to both, has to learn about. And I think that's a thing with just wherever you're from in the U.S. It's whatever crazy event happened in your state, you're going to learn in history class.
It's dumb. Like, why not? Why don't we just have a uniform?
Okay, so, well, I think it's cool because you're learning about specifically what went on around you. Like, one of my...
It makes more sense if they were teaching you, like, localized government, like,
Maybe.
Like what's going on in your state and how to participate, like, but the whole history of the entire country should be, because I learned about the California Gold Rush in school in Texas, but
you would have had it for about 10 minutes. We had a whole ass unit on
I'm sure you know way too much more compared to me, but I know I was taught Texas history in like 3 different years, so
yeah, I don't know shit about Texas history. By the way, foreshadowing for next week.
There's like a 20-year period of history in Texas. That's not that bad.
Well, because you guys were the only state that was its own country for a little bit.
It wasn't that long though. Yeah, it wasn't very long at all. It was very quickly they were like, this is expensive.
So yeah, the California Gold Rush is something I had to learn about. One of my coworkers, a history teacher, she's from Chicago, and she was telling me that that when she was growing up in Chicago, they learned about Al Capone for like 2 weeks. So I think it's just wherever you're from, you get the like your state's version of
What a cool thing to learn about. Of all
right.
you got the gold rush. I got Texas, but Chicago, Illinois gets fucking Al Capone,
Yeah,
man.
like gangsters and Al Capone. I'm very jealous.
I
You
did
know who you
girl from
are.
Chicago. She never brought that up. That's crazy.
Damn. Yeah, or like another thing we had to learn about was like the missions, the California missions. I'm not really going to go into that. Maybe we can do an episode on that in the future.
For sure.
But California Gold Rush roughly occurred between 1848 and 1855. And that year might set off some alarm bells for you because you're a football fan, right?
I am a football fan, but I don't.
The San Francisco 49ers?
I don't know. And I knew that was what that was too. And it still didn't click.
Yeah. So the gold rush is said to have started when a shopkeeper named Sam Brandon was at the American River, like washing his face or something. He finds some gold and he freaks the fuck out and he runs into town going, "There's gold in the American River!" Yeah, so,
why would you tell people?
Exactly.
What an idiot.
Well, he is a shopkeeper. So part of the thing is that the gold rush had it so people were coming to California thinking they could make their fortune if they mined some gold. But really, the people who ended up making the most money and being the most well off in the end were people like shopkeepers who were like, "Hey, I have some pickaxes for sale."
Right. Or just food, like
Food,
beer,
booze,
clothing.
doctors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just people who sold stuff. So that makes sense.
Yeah, so the sun quote, the sudden influx of gold into the money supply reinvigorated the American economy. The sudden population increase allowed California to go rapidly into statehood in the Compromise of 1850. That has to do with um, the lead up to the Civil War, which I highly recommend watching the oversimplified version of, or like the YouTuber for the Civil War, because he goes over this a little bit. But yeah, in 1850, California becomes a state because of all these people coming into the area for.
So it's like a population type of thing. Like they're like, there's this many people in this area now.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and just, add it on.
Make them a state. Yeah. Because all that territory was won in the Mexican-American War. And then it was just like rough territories. And eventually you have these states coming on. And that was lead up to the Civil War, because every time an area would get statehood, they would vote to be a free or a slave state. California.
I didn't know they voted on that.
Yeah. So as part of statehood, you're like, are you a free state or are you a slave state? So Missouri voted to become a slave state, and that's what led to the Missouri Compromise. The no states above this line at the top of Missouri can be a slave state, and all that stuff. And then California voted to become a free state, which is a little awkward because it's so big that it's just above Missouri anyway. So right. it just led to all this like kerfuffleness that ended up with the Civil War, but that's not what we're talking about today. Just something to note. Unfortunately, it had a severe effect on Native Californians such as the Tongva tribe, and accelerated the Native American population's genocide from disease, starvation, and something called the California Genocide, which I'll be quick about this, was a series of systematic killings of thousands of indigenous people by U.S. government agents and private citizens in the 19th century. So it was mostly due to the gold rush, right? You have all these people coming in and they're like, all these, people who were
white people.
Yeah, non-white people that are making it so I can't go farm gold. I'm going to kill them. Punchy, punchy, punchy. What does Zari mean by that?
I mean, history is dark. I hate to break it to you, buddy, but history is always dark. It always has been, and hopefully we're getting better, but, you never know.
Yeah. So how I learned it in school was there's the Sam Brandon story with finding the gold in the American River, and then it just kind of went on from there. Most of it was about like how gold mining worked and how like panning for gold worked, and less about what was happening to those people. We got a very whitewashed example of it. Now, granted, this was in 4th grade, so
I'm sure the example. I'm sure like the whole history is whitewashed.
yeah,
Like we probably, even if we got down to the nitty gritty, we probably still aren't getting the whole story. You know.
yeah. So the first to arrive from outside of California were from Oregon, the Sandwich Islands, Hawaii. This is before Hawaii is a state. In Latin America in 1848. So you from all directions, right? Top, bottom, and like Pacific Ocean. It was whitewashed for me in both the 5th and 11th grade. Well, great. This will be fun.
That's American schools, right?
Yep, that'll do it. So these people in the early gold rush were called 49ers. Like that was just a name for a gold miner. Was a 49er.
Just because of the year 1949, or
yeah, showing up in 1849. We're really bad at naming things in this country.
Well, it's an entire country made of pirates. You know what I mean? For the most part, it's like a lot of like successful, rich, wealthy people were actually just pirates who came over here to get away from the British Army. You know what I mean? And they weren't particularly good at naming shit. Like they mentioned it in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. They're like Shipwreck's Cove, you know, like things like that. Like,
yeah, or just like naming an insurrection on our state's capital as January 6th. Like, really, you couldn't think of a cooler name? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, now nothing good can happen on January 6th. You can't even have if you're a little baby born on January 6th. People are like,
yeah, like that day's ruined forever. I mean, also 9/11, same thing.
Yeah, right? 9/11. 9/11. Not like
in the US for some reason, whenever we name a holiday, it's just like the day and not what the day's about. I believe we learned about the gold rush in 5th grade. That or it was the Civil War and slavery, probably the latter. It depends on where you went to school.
It might have been like the same year. I learned about it all in the same year.
So. Yeah, like I did. Mostly, this is just bits and pieces of Miss Greenbaum, and then some various like websites. Mostly for people like, how does he do it? I go to Wikipedia, I go down to the sources, and I look at the sources.
Bro, Texas is weird. Texas, the way they did specifically history was like every year they would go through like as much as they possibly could. They would be like Greeks, Romans, the British, World War II, and they would spend so much time on World War II.
Yeah, World War II.
Don't get me wrong, they would do like the American Revolution. Then they would get to the Civil War. They spent a good amount of time on the Civil War, and then they would always tell you the same bullshit line, which it wasn't about slaves; it was about states' rights. I'm like, okay. And then they would get into World War II, skip right over World War I every year, go right into World War II, spend a whole semester on World War II, and then they're like, all right, it's done every year. And then there was like 1 year where it was all Texas history, and then we go right back to it again. Same thing every year. I'm like, bruh, we learned this already every year. And it's minute. They don't spend a whole year on a subject by no means. You're not really like absorbing the information because they go through it so fast, you know?
Yeah. And like, at least in college, I took like different history classes about specific stuff, right? Like, I took a class that was just about the American Civil War. That's it. That was the whole class.
The Civil War is always very interesting to me.
Yes,
I can't wait till we do that.
That's gonna be a multi-parter, and we need someone to come help us because
we need somebody who's like, it's just gonna be weird because I feel like we're gonna be putting it against each other because we've taught two different things, and then like
that's kind of interesting. I say we get like a third person, get Dino in here or something, who's Canadian.
Why would he even? There's no fucking skin in the dog or whatever the saying is.
Skin in the game? No skin in the game?
That's the one.
Yeah. I mean, sure.
January 6th.
When the three kings delivered presents to baby Jesus.
Isn't it really?
Is that the reason they picked the day?
Really? That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Oh my God. I actually think I might have learned about the gold rush in the 4th grade. I remember. Yeah. So this was the same year I learned about all that. Shout out to Miss Greenbaum if you're still out there. Oh lordy. So yeah, you had approximately like 300,000 people coming to California during the gold rush, and this is like the size of a large city now, but back then that's a lot of fucking people.
Oh yeah, shitload.
There's no Panama Canal at this point. Half of them are arriving by sea, half are coming overland on the California Trail and California Road. So one of the ways you can do that is to so it's the western half of the American continent from the Missouri River up to California. So you would go we didn't, this is before cars and freeways and stuff. So there's no
Right.
like, oh, Route 66 or whatever.
It was dangerous, like
Yeah.
to go through all that. You had to
Yeah.
cross the Mississippi River, which I imagine was a pain in the ass. Yeah.
Yes. So you have three trails from the Midwest coming together. So you have the Oregon Trail, California Trail, and Mormon Trail, because of course they get to South Pass, and then you either split off and go south to Salt Lake City, go north to the Oregon Trail where you get dysentery. Love Oregon Trail, and then in the middle is the California Trail, which cuts through like Nevada, and then you end in like NorCal for the most part. So
where was it mostly localized? Was it Los Angeles for the most part, where people were going, or
no? This is all Northern California. So San Francisco was the big city that people were coming in by sea for. That's where that name comes from. So it was a big like port town, and then as it grew in size, you had people coming in and then splitting off from there. So I remember when doing the field trips for this this unit in fourth grade, we went to Sacramento, and part of it was going to the American River and panning for gold and getting like a couple flakes left or whatever, because there's still gold in there.
we have gold mines in West Texas too, so I believe it.
Maybe California and Delaware have similar curriculums. IDK, if you guys had to learn about American history during one of your yeah,
American history for sure. Yeah, every year, like I said, they just plow through it, but you don't learn anything because they just go through it as quickly as they possibly can.
I know, and then like one of my coworkers is like, she ran out of stuff to talk about. Like she got through World War II. And was like, there's not enough time to cover the Cold War. What do I do? I'm like, these kids have lived through COVID. Why not between World War I and II take a minute and talk about that? Because I didn't even know that was a thing until like 6 months before COVID happened, because Extra History did a unit.
The Spanish flu?
Yeah.
They taught me about that a little bit. I remember learning a lot about that, actually, the Spanish flu and all that.
So, lots of people showing up. This was, again, mostly in NorCal. Los Angeles doesn't really become much of a town until like the turn of the 20th century and the start of film. And the reason for that is because of the weather. You can film in pretty much any time of year. It's not beholden to weather and like, the roads are snowed out or something. Everyone is able to get to the studio every day or wherever it is they happen to be filming. So San Francisco grew from a settlement of about 200 residents in 1846 to a boom town of about 36,000 by 1852.
Dude, I'd be so pissed if I was one of the originals. I'd be like, fuck, man, you have shit. Like,
why is there so much traffic? Yeah.
That's exactly why, the 405 is so fucking like ridiculous where you live now.
Mm-hmm. So roads, churches, schools, other towns were built throughout California. Because of, so it starts with San Francisco and like, moves out from there.
That's exactly how the fuck that would happen. That would happen to me because I would move I'm the type of person that would move to the middle of the desert, close enough where there's water, but just like where there's not really anybody. There's a handful of people that I can get used to. I don't want to talk to every day, but I can see them. Hey, what's up? Oh, there are monsters over there. All right, cool. I won't go over there. Thank you for warning me. But then I moved in the middle of the desert, and then all these other people discover gold or whatever and show the fuck up. And I'm like, how the fuck y'all follow me all the way in the middle of fucking nowhere? Like,
yeah, there had to have been one just like, pissed off guy, just
introvert.
a guy,
Yeah.
yeah, like a curmudgeon who's just like, I don't want to talk to any. Why is everybody here? Okay. Anyway, 1849 state constitution was written. So again, 49ers, right? That makes sense. So San Francisco is like the OG big city of California. Everyone usually ties it to Los Angeles, but San Francisco is the OG. And I'm sorry to that girl who I went to college with, who we were constantly arguing about NorCal versus SoCal. You win, I guess. You were here first.
I think SoCal wins. It's way better. You got better weather,
I don't know. I
you
like
got the
Lakers.
Lakers. You got the Lakers. You got the Los Angeles Lakers. You win.
And the Dodgers, who are solid.
So Zaragoza says they use mercury to mine gold and pollute the rivers in the process. Yay!
Yes, Zaru is right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, mercury for a long time was this thing where people were like, "It's metal, but it's liquid. What can we do with it?" And then just like go
it
nuts.
Doesn't seem like anything. It doesn't seem like you could do anything with it, really. If somebody asked me, if it was never discovered, they're like it's metal, but it's liquid, I'd be like, put it over there. I don't know.
Yeah, because some people are like, "Ooh, I can," alchemy and medicine and shit like that, where they're just like, "I'll drink it," and then it makes.
That's exactly. That's a dead ass would hand. I'll be like, "Here, drink it and see what happens." They're like, "You drink it." I'll be like, "Nah."
That's where the phrase "mad as a hatter" comes from, because hatters in London would use mercury to clean hats, and then the metal would absorb through their skin and go fucking insane. Anyway, so at the beginning of the gold rush, there was no law regarding property rights in the gold fields, and a system of staking claims was developed. So I'm sure you've seen this in any movie show where there's a gold miner, right? Like I staked my claim, nobody comes here, right? I can shoot them.
Yeah, there's that one commercial of mac and cheese back in the day. I think it was Velveeta, and he's like, get away from my gold, get.
Yeah, I remember that. Or if you ever saw Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
You know what? Oh yeah, with James Franco.
Yeah, so there's one of the little vignettes is a gold miner, and he's trying to stake his claim. He's trying to find where the vein of gold is. So prospectors retrieve gold from streams and riverbeds, using stuff such as panning. Although mining caused environmental harm, more sophisticated methods of gold recovery were developed and later adopted around the world. So things like steamships come into service because of the gold rush, where we want to move a lot of people, and we want to have it so it's not tied to the winds or anything like that. Steamships. So
okay, so how does a steamship work? I don't actually know that science.
Do you know how a steam engine works?
Not really. No, I know a combustion engine. I know hot coal and stuff like that, but I don't really understand steam.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's just the coal makes heat, which heats water, which
So it's just a coal engine, but with Okay.
Instead of using the flames from combustion, like gasoline, the flames from the coal heat water, which you then use as the thing to turn stuff, because steam has a lot of explosive power to it.
Gotcha. So it's almost like the heat causes pressure and it makes everything move, kind of. Okay.
Yeah. So if you've seen a steamship on the Mississippi, it's got that big wheel.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's turning it, is the steam.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So by 1869, railroads were built from California to the eastern United States. So again, because of this gold rush, this is after the gold rush ends, by the way. You have these railroads built just because San Francisco by this point has become such a big cultural center, right? There's so many people who came here to mine gold, and there's such a big population here. They're like, okay, well, all right, I guess we'll build trains out there. And that's how California becomes this such a large unit in American culture. And
public transportation hub too, right?
Yeah.
kind of is. Yeah, with the exception of New York, but
hmm
maybe
So
Chicago.
like, so you have that, and then like that combined with the movie industry starting in the early 20th century, California becomes like
The hotspot. Yeah.
the boy, the goat. Yeah. Um. So, I missed my place or lost my place at its peak. So at its peak, technological advances reached a point where significant financing was required. Um, Gold was worth like tens of billions of dollars today in US dollars today was recovered. So this led to great wealth for a few, although many who participated in the gold rush earned little more than they had started with. So it was mostly like you know how all the stuff in this last year with like NFTs?
Yeah.
It's that basically.
I mean,
It's a
that's how I always feel about anytime there's something like new to jump on. With it was like, yeah, NFTs was a great example. Um, like the what was it, the Dogecoin and the net, not the was it a GameStop thing? Like,
yeah.
we're not. Nobody's gonna make it. You have to have a lot of money to make
Mhm.
more money. You know what I mean? If you're putting $100 in there, you're not. You're gonna get maybe $200. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna. That's how
Yeah.
anything is. If you ask me.
Cryptocurrency, right? So like the
Yeah, all that
again,
stuff.
the people that turn out the best or like have the best time with the gold rush are the people who had enough money from the get-go that they can then sell stuff to people coming to mine gold, right?
But,
Your
yeah,
shopkeepers.
pay somebody to mine gold for you, stuff like that. You know,
Yeah. Um
probably make slaves do it. I don't know. Well, no, you didn't have slaves in California, so right.
I mean, well, it was technically a free state, but it's not like we were perfect or anything.
God,
Um,
it's a little
so
red mark on your sash there, Atlas. That's fucking shit.
all right. So in what has been referred to as the first world-class gold rush, because there have been other gold rushes before that, there was no easy way to get to California. So 49ers faced hardship and often death on the way. So you hear about there's gold in them Thar Hills, right? You've heard that before?
Actually, I haven't.
Really? Okay, so that's like a joke, where like you just say that to the other people, like there's gold in them
I
Thar
grew up so poor. I don't even think we made jokes about money.
Fair enough. So at first, Argonauts, as they were known, traveled by sea. So from the East Coast, a sailing voyage from around the tip of South America would take around 4 to 5 months. Um, so that would take that's about 18,000 nautical miles, and the alternative was to sail to Panama, the Isthmus, where the Panama Canal is eventually built, and then take canoes and mules for a week through the jungle, and then on the Pacific side, grab a ship that's headed to San Francisco.
Jesus.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Fuck. It's like that's such a long period of time of your
Yeah.
life. You know.
It was just like a thing, I think, in the 19th century to be like, I'm gonna go do this job or I'm gonna go do this, and then you're like, bye everyone, I'll see you in 4 to 5 years or more, right?
Right. But and then that's also the time period in which like your whole like the village you came from catches a disease and you come back home and your family's all gone. You're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
there's yeah, like you have telegraphs at this point, but it's not great. Like they don't have the infrastructure for it as much.
was the Pony Express thing yet? The USPS?
I think Pony Express is around this time, and it's only for a few years before the USPS becomes a thing.
Right.
Uh, so there was a route across Mexico starting at Veracruz. So again, people left over from the Mexican-American War, they had probably an easier time. You just take a walk up there instead of having to go from like New York to Panama, across Panama, and then
I mean,
back up.
people still make that walk today. So,
Good point.
like,
Um, so the companies that provided the transportation to the gold rush also made a lot of money, right? So this included the U.S. Mail Steamship Company. So
Interesting.
USPS being like, "Hey, we got mail. We got room for people too. If you want to pay, we'll just be okay. Cool."
A coyote service. Gotcha.
Yeah. The federally subsidized Pacific Mail Steamship Company, so that was owned by the government, and the Accessory Transit Company. And many gold seekers just took the overland route. So, like I was mentioning before, with the 3 routes that split into Salt Lake City, Oregon, and California.
Isn't it crazy that, like, at any given time in this country, up to about maybe 60 years ago, it was always just had influxes of immigration, and now all of a sudden it's been a problem. Like, I get that we have a large immigration, like a large amount of immigration right now, but like I don't understand. I've never understood why that was. Oh, they're stealing our jobs. There aren't any jobs. There's no jobs. Like I don't. You're not stealing my job. Like you know what I mean? Like
it mostly just comes down to like rich people being, rich people as a pile of cookies.
Working. Like that's the crazy part. They're up at the top doing like putting money into stocks, like we said a second ago, in crypto. And then they're the ones they're taking all our jobs. No, you're the one that wants to pay them. You're the ones that pay. You're the ones that underpay them, so that you don't have to pay us. You know what I mean? So I don't know why y'all are bitching. Nobody else, like you and me, are bitching about it. You know? So
yeah. So people were very prone to disease on the way there, right? Dysentery, typhoid fever, cholera. 2 or 3 of those involves epic diarrhea. So, that's.
I think if you traveled across the country, or really a large from one part of the country to California, and survived like being bit by snakes and whatever flu was you passed by, and being cooped up in a little fucking wagon or getting attacked by Native Americans, you survived all that. You probably got a pretty good immune system. You're probably kind of a badass too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is why you guys, honestly, everybody there is just so pretty. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think it's that.
You don't think it's that? Really?
No, I think it's
y'all aren't the specimens of.
No, I think it's the pretty people come out here because they know that pretty people get like work or
jobs. That makes sense. Well, yeah, definitely now. But you don't think it was?
And I'm not just talking about in entertainment, by the way. I mean, like when you interview, if you're hotter, you typically just do better.
That works everywhere too. Yeah.
Like pretty privilege, right? Like if you are like a handsome guy, a hot woman, people are usually will trust you more just on principle for whatever.
Weird.
Not principle, but like
those are usually the master manipulators too.
Most of the time, yes.
I had a woman ask me like maybe a few weeks ago. She was like, "Do dudes get pretty privileged?" I was like, "Yes, 100%."
Yeah, like, we
do. Not to the extent of women, but yeah, for sure. So you say, yeah, we do.
You get like handsome privilege or whatever you want to call it. Like
whatever you call it.
Yeah. Just dudes who are like, oh, he's such a handsome man, and then it turns out he's like a rapist or something. Human trafficking, yes, great example.
We're the dark ones.
That's sorry for you. Anyway, so from steamships from the eastern seaboard, most passengers would bring like kits with them, right? So you have clothes, guidebooks, tools, along with whatever other stuff you wanted to bring. Argonauts, in particular, were required to bring personal barrels of beef, biscuits, butter, pork, rice, and salt. And the reason for that was just to one that you could keep that for months at a time. Salted meat, things like that.
Right.
But also it's like enough nutrition to not die.
Now, were they ice boxes yet by this time?
Not really.
No.
You didn't really have refrigeration like in people's homes. I think you had industrial freezers maybe, but it didn't really become a thing until like the 40s or 50s. Like the concept of the milkman was the thing up through the 50s even.
There's my ex's house has a milk door or whatever. When I lived with her, was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is this thing? She's like, it's the milk door. I was like, y'all had milk people? Like, I was like, so the
Yes.
wives are just getting banged left and right by
Yeah. See,
strangers.
is the like you can screw in the milkman, right?
Right, yeah. I was like, I see this house as a back door too.
Mhm. Most of the time, while people on the ships, they would smoke, fish. Right, you're on the back of a boat, just throw a rod over the side, talk to each other. The biggest thing they would do is gamble. Um, so, which was ironic because the segregation between wealth gaps was prominent throughout the ships. So the rich people were kept up here, poor people were down here. Everybody was gambling.
Like the Titanic.
Kind of, yeah. That's a great example, actually. So everything was segregated, rich versus poor.
It sounds about right. Nothing's changed.
Yep, nothing's changed. So there were different levels that you could pay for same fucking thing with an airplane, right? First class, business, coach. So same kind of deal for these boats. So the cheaper steamships tended to have longer routes too. So if you paid less, it would take a longer time, but you could pay more and get to California faster. Yay. But if you were doing that, you already had the money to do it and you were going to be fine anyway.
Right.
I just realized the more I talk about this, the more like
I just have a person. It doesn't matter how much money I have. I'm taking the cheapest, not the cheapest, but like I'm gonna go pretty cheap because I'm like I just hang out with the broke people now. Probably because I always was broke, but these guys are more fun. You know what I mean? Like they don't gotta know I'm rich. You know.
Yeah. You also had ships with goods going to San Francisco because, again, this is before the trains come in. That's later.
Right.
It's a boom town, right? So they need supplies. You have people coming from supply ships coming to San Francisco. And then people would get there and just leave the ship behind. You're like, here's your stuff. I'm going Gold Panic. All right, see ya.
So was piracy a big thing yet, or in the Pacific? I know all about Atlantic piracy, but I don't know anything about the Pacific.
I don't think it's as much of a thing because there's not as much space, or there's more space, meaning you don't
not as much to hit, right?
Yeah,
like Hawaii, the fucking what is it? The Easter Islands, which has nothing on there.
Tahiti and all that stuff. No, but like the Pacific is fucking gigantic. Like I don't know how to really, because when you look at the
cold
Pacific,
too, right?
What?
It's cold too, right? The colder ocean.
It depends. Like in California, it's cold, but like near the equator, it's like bathwater warm. It's that big. The reason that people don't really think about it is because when you look at a map of the world, the Pacific is cut off in the middle. So on the left side, it's like the Pacific Ocean, the North and South America, all that stuff. And on the right side, it's, Africa, Japan, Europe, all that stuff.
Right.
So it's cut in half. So we don't really have a current, like a visual of how big the Pacific Ocean is. So I think you just don't have as much piracy then, because you're like, when am I going to run into someone that I can take their shit? No one? Okay. All right. That sucks. I'm going to the Atlantic.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So So after they got there and they were like, "Fuck this! Here's your stuff. I'm done." They would convert the ships into like warehouses, stores, taverns, hotels. One was turned into a jail.
A boat?
Well, they would take the materials apart and reuse the material, right?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. You still have some things like you can. Have you been to LA before?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so there's a neighborhood in LA called Marina del Rey or Playa del Rey. And it's next to the water, and there's like just this area where just boats fucking everywhere. So you have a lot of like bars that are on a boat and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty common up here too on the lake. And then in the Gulf of Mexico, they have a whole ass casino because casinos are illegal in Texas. So they have it offshore. It's on a boat. It's a big ass. I say a boat, but it's a big ass fucking ship. You know?
Yeah. Is it one of those things where it's like we're just outside the
yeah. It's like it doesn't count as on in the state or whatever.
Yeah. So as the city expanded and new places were needed on which to build, many of the ships were destroyed and used for stuff, right? Material or landfill. Um,
Well, you gotta give it to them for recycling, man.
yeah. Um, so I'll stop talking about like the getting there. So when the gold rush began, the California gold fields were particularly lawless, like I was saying with the staking your claim. When it was discovered at Sutter's Mill, California was technically part of Mexico, so still at that time under a military occupation as part of the Mexican-American War. So with the signing of the end of the war in 1848, California became possession of the United States, but it was just a territory.
And when was that?
The Mexican-American War ended on February 2nd, 1848.
That was right around the same time that Texas had got it declared its independence from Mexico. Weirdly enough,
That was
1846.
Okay, so yeah, during the war, all that's going on at the same time.
I didn't even know that was when I didn't know America was fighting Mexico at the time too.
Yeah,
so that makes sense.
All right, so because the gold in California gravel beds and the rivers were so richly concentrated, like there was so much fucking gold. Early 49ers, you could just put your hand in and get a little bit at least, or just pan for gold, right?
Have you ever panned for gold? Like, have you ever gone to the little?
Yeah, we did that as part of that field trip. You had to go up.
Yeah, I've done that too.
Yeah, and then it was a little like little bottle, like yay big with water, and there's a couple of flakes of gold in there.
Oh yeah, I had a nice little like chunk that big. I don't know whatever happened to it. It wasn't like maybe that big, but I don't know. That I was like 9, and I was told, "Oh, it's not worth that much," and then it probably got jacked from me.
So panning doesn't like yay, you found gold, but it's only like a little flake. So you wanted like a lot, right?
Yeah.
So you had it can't really take place on a large scale. You have miners graduated to placer mining using cradles to process larger volumes of gravel. So like digging into these veins that you're finding around the river. Miners would also engage in, quote, coyoteing, a method that involved digging a shaft 6 to 13 meters, 20 to 40-ish feet deep.
That's crazy because when we talk about Texas history in the next episode, we're going to mention a term called coyoteing as well, but it's a different thing.
Ah, interesting. Okay. So tunnels were then dug in all directions to reach the richest veins of pay dirt. And I'm sure you've heard that term before, right?
Yeah.
So that's where this comes from. Pay dirt. Or digging in the dirt. I found some gold. Pay dirt.
Pay dirt.
Yeah. So by 1853, hydraulic mining was used on ancient gold-bearing gravel beds, on hillsides and bluffs in gold fields. In a modern style of hydraulic mining, first developed in California and later used around the world, a high-pressure hose directed a powerful stream or jet of water at gold-bearing gravel beds. Does that sound familiar to nowadays?
No.
Have you ever heard of fracking before?
Yeah, I've heard of fracking, but I don't know.
Fracking is using water to break up the rock.
Is it? Okay, so isn't it illegal now or something like that?
They're trying to, like, it's becoming legal in less and less places because it's awful for the environment.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's one of those things where, like, oh, it's less bad on the surface, but because it does things like cause earthquakes because it breaks up the bedrock that eventually rubs against each other, and then there's the earthquake.
Yeah, I just remember during the Obama administration, I was like a kid, so I just remember them being like, fracking this, fracking that in the news. And I was just like, well, I don't know. Whatever.
So this is like not an OG version of fracking, but like the progenitor to it. So this is like them using the same sort of deal. They're using water.
The manual version of it, pretty much.
Yeah. So a byproduct of these extraction methods was that large amounts of gravel, silt, heavy metals, and other pollutants went into streams and rivers. So the gold rush was awful for the environment. So court rulings in the 1882 and 1884 Sawyer Act and 1893 federal legislation limited hydraulic mining in California. So that was that, but fracking didn't get banned until like what?
Recently,
Yeah.
200 years later. Okay, well that does bring up a question that I'm kind of interested in is like, so like when you had all these like new people in California all of a sudden, were earthquakes as big of a deal yet there, or is that kind of more of a recent development? Because like imagine moving there in flux, like all these people, and then the ground just starts moving. And you're like, this is the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like witches.
Yeah, it was probably scary for them. I know that like we're near a big fault line just in California. That's not part of the gold rush. That's just like
right. That's just where you are.
Where we are. So you just get earthquakes a lot. I think for the people who came from other parts of the country, it was nuts. But look at me. My parents are from Florida, and one was an Army brat, so I don't know if from anywhere counts. But to them, earthquakes were scary when they first got here. And then to me, who grew up here my whole life, earthquakes are like, okay, so.
Right. That's because that's how I am with like a pretty decent sized hurricane. It's like when a hurricane, I'm just like, whatever, dude. Like,
yeah, so I'd be out, whatever. Like, I've never been somewhere while a hurricane was going on.
Yeah, they're fucked up. If I'm honest, you go back and like when it's happening to you, if you're used to it, you're like, whatever. But then you go back and like watch the footage of like what happened with Hurricane Katrina, you're like, fuck, that did happen.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I know that for my dad, when he was a kid, he was like, after a hurricane, the wind would still be really strong. So me and your Uncle Steve and your Uncle Bill would go into the street, and we'd get in a wagon, and you'd put up a kite, and then the kite would get like blown by the wind, and then you get pulled down the street.
Yeah, somebody died.
Yeah,
doing that not that long ago. Like I said, like maybe like a decade ago, somebody would put a kite on the beach, and it dragged him into a tree.
Oh my god!
Like,
okay, so this is like early '60s that my dad's doing this.
Well, this was like 2013, maybe. Okay. I'm talking about. It wasn't that long ago.
Jeez,
I'm like, yeah, don't do that. Especially in Florida. Florida gets fucked up weather.
So after the gold rush had ended, gold recovery operations continued. So there's still mining. People are still mining for gold, but the like, everybody come to San Francisco and come make your fortune, like that had pretty much fallen off after a few years, right? So the hype had mostly gone down, but it's not like people stopped mining for gold. The final stage to recover loose gold was to prospect for gold that had slowly washed down into the flat river bottoms and sandbars of California's Central Valley. So, you know, like where, not Silicon Valley, but near there, sort of. And other gold-bearing areas of California, such as Scott Valley or Siskiyou County, which I don't know where that is. So by the 1890s, dredging technology, also invented in California, had become economical, and it was estimated that more than 20 million troy ounces. Right? What are troy ounces?
Got me.
Troy ounce. A troy ounce is a unit of measurements to weigh precious metals. It is equivalent to 31 point blah 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 grams. Okay, that's stupid. Just an amount of gold. I lost my place. Okay, so both the gold rush and the decades that followed, gold seekers also engaged in hard rock mining, extracting the gold directly from the rock that contained it. So this is what you think of with the guy with the pickaxe, right?
Right.
Where he's just plink, plink, plink until he gets the gold. Usually by digging and blasting. So dynamite had been invented by this point.
That would be what I would do. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, blow off a couple of your fingers, stuff like that, to follow and remove veins of the gold-bearing quartz. Most of the gold-bearing rocks were brought to the surface. The rocks were crushed and the gold separated, either using separation in water, using the density difference from the quartz sand, human trafficking, boom, or by washing the sand over copper plates coated with mercury. So there's where the mercury comes in, which with gold forms an amalgam. So like the gold would stick to the mercury, right? You could take it off when you were done. Loss of mercury in the amalgamation process was a source of environmental contamination. So there's another thing where the mercury is bleeding off into just the environment. Eventually, hard rock mining became the single source of gold produced in gold country. The total production of gold in California from then until now is estimated at 118 million troy ounces.
Wait, so like people are still using mercury
No,
well into the 1800s?
Oh, in the 1800s they are, but like
that's crazy because like even like the Chinese 2,000 years ago discovered that it was like poisonous, and they used it to wall off like one of their fucking kings to keep people out of it, like one of their dead kings, so that people wouldn't like go in there. So like there were early civilizations that realized that mercury was really bad for you. Like, so I feel like these people are just like they knew what the fuck they were doing all the way into the 1800s.
Yeah, or just like they were like, I want gold. I don't give a shit if I have to handle mercury. You know. Okay, so 118 million troy ounces is 7,375,000 pounds.
Jesus.
Or if it's
too much to carry.
For the grams out there, let's see. It's about like 3 billion grams.
Okay, but what is a bar? That's what I understand. What is a gold bar?
It's
gold bar. Like how much in weight?
Well,
400 troy ounces.
Okay.
I'm still not real clear on that.
Yeah, so that's usually kept in Fort. Like those gold bars are
in Fort Knox.
Mined by the government that are kept in Fort Knox. Do you know what Fort Knox is named after?
No, I do not actually.
So it was named after Henry Knox, which was a guy who, one of the founding fathers. He didn't do all that much in government, but what he did in like the early parts of the war, of the American Revolution. So there was a fort called Fort Ticonderoga north of Boston that had like hella guns, hella ammunition, and Benedict Arnold, before he did the bad shit when he was still on the American side, he went up there by himself, met up with Henry Allen and the Green Mountain Boys, which were like a militia. They took the fort by themselves in the middle of the night, and then Henry Knox was like, "Hey, I have oxen. Why don't you drag all of those guns and ammunition down to Boston, and then we can surround the city," because the British had control of the city. So it was like a big oh, good for him. So that's why the National Bank is named after him, is because he helped for like a huge victory in the early part of the American Revolutionary War.
I didn't know that. I never even heard of Henry Knox, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's where Fort Knox comes from. Also, he was hella rich. I imagine he probably would have been a fan of that. So some effects of the gold rush before we get out of here. So it propelled California from a sleepy, little-known backwater to a center of global imagination and the destination of hundreds of thousands of people. I'm sure that's been understood by now. The new immigrants often showed remarkable inventiveness and civic-mindedness. For example, in the midst of the gold rush, towns and cities were chartered, a state constitutional convention was convened, a state constitution written, elections held, and representatives sent to Washington, D.C. to negotiate the admission of California as a state. So this is all before it becomes a state. All these people that have come here are like, hey, we want to be a state. We should figure that shit out.
And what year did you guys become a state?
We became a state in 1850. So
1850.
Yeah, so this is all within 2 years.
Shit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, y'all probably had some of the wealthiest people in the world, or in the country, probably the world, moved there real recently. So yeah, I'm sure those people alone were involved in we got to make this a state or whatever. There's probably, I don't know, whatever benefit there was at the time.
Yeah.
Being a state.
Large-scale agriculture, which is also known as California's second gold rush, stupid name, began during this time. Roads, schools, churches, civic organizations quickly came into existence. The vast majority of immigrations were Americans. Pressure grew for better communications and political connections to the rest of the U.S., leading to statehood for California on September 9th, 1850, in the Compromise of 1850 as the 31st state. So, as I mentioned at the beginning. I mentioned this stuff about the Native Americans. They were genocided because people wanted gold. I'm just going to keep that.
I mean, that's why, that is exactly what happened that's always been the plight of the Native American from as soon as white people came here. It was like, hey, we want gold. We know there's gold over here. Give us the gold. And then they just started fucking killing them. That's always been a thing with the Native Americans,
Yeah. So I bet you're wondering if this had an effect worldwide because
you mentioned that it might have had something to do with the the kickoff of the Civil War and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it stimulated economies around the world. So farmers in Chile, Australia, Hawaii, which was known as the Sandwich Islands at the time, found a huge new market for their food. So British manufactured goods were in high demand. Clothing and even prefabricated houses arrived from China. So because all of these people are coming here and we're like, we need shit. I want to mine for gold. You have all these people coming from other countries around the world because of this big influx of population. The return of large amounts of California gold to pay for these goods raised prices and stimulated investment and creation of jobs around the world. So, it's
the more you know.
Yeah. So it's inflation, but not really the bad connotation of inflation. Where when you think of inflation, you think of stuff like after World War I for Germany, like the hyperinflation or the price gouging going on right now in the US. This is more of the thing where like there is more gold, therefore stuff. There's more gold.
It brings me back to something I said a few weeks ago. Was how everything, if you look back on history, everything was leading towards World War I and World War II in a way, no matter how far back you go. Because if California blew up the entire world economy, the global economy, everybody moving to California for all things, that means that all these other countries in the world started developing and improving their militaries, and then started jostling for position. Because if you think about it, what is it? You said 1850 is when it became a state.
Yeah.
Well, roughly 60 years later, World War I begins. So one lifetime, really.
Yeah. Not a bad. That's a good observation. We also the U.S. was on a bimetallic standard, so where your money was backed by gold or silver. But because of so much increase of gold, they took silver out of circulation.
Huh. Didn't know that.
So it caused a little bit of a supply shock at first because they're like, "What the fuck? This is too much." And then once they took the silver away, it was okay.
So there was a massive inflation, like right now, similar to what's going on right now in the country.
Well, the inflation that we're experiencing right now is mostly price gouging through.
It's just greed, for sure.
Yeah, because
everybody's like, "What the fuck?" All of a sudden,
Well, because it was COVID at first, and then COVID ended, but they just kept pretending it was still COVID and kept prices high.
And they don't want to go back to the way prices used to be. That's what it is. They're like, "Well, we're making this much now. Why can we make this much now?"
But I'm sure you're seeing the news stories now where like Amazon, Target, all of them are like lowering their prices because we're like, we were price gouging.
I haven't seen that actually. It's good to know though. I haven't noticed that.
Yeah. So one last thing before we go here, I wanted to talk about gender practices. So California brought in a lot of dudes. Dudes, guys,
like
men. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I heard you right.
So it was very.
It was a sausage fest. Gotcha.
It was a sausage fest. Yeah. Okay. Here's the quote. Brought a disproportionate population of men and set an environment of experimental lawlessness separate from the bounds of standard society. Conventional American gender roles came into question. So you have all these people who are like, okay, you put the, stake your claim and stuff. You don't really have governments in place in the first couple of years there. So in the large absence of women, men were made to reorganize their social and, sexual practices. So you had men cross-dressing a lot.
Not. Let me just. I know I made a face. Okay, I made a face. I'm gonna say there's nothing wrong with homosexuality, but I will say is if you fuck a dude and then you're all of a sudden you're like, no, I wasn't gay. There just wasn't. You're gay. Okay, you're gay. Okay, just own it. Okay, own it. It's the same thing with jail. You know, like just own it. Just own it. You know.
So dance events were a notable social space for cross-dressing, where a piece of cloth, such as a handkerchief or sackcloth patch, would denote a woman. On TikTok, you know how guys will put like a hand towel over their head when they like play a woman? It's the same fucking thing. It's the same thing.
A wig. I actually have I've spent like $30 on an actual like Barbie wig that I like brush and shit for my TikTok.
So aside from that, because there were just not many women around, you had a lot of like domestic roles going to guys because there's no women.
So like, you guys have always been, California has always been, what is it? So y'all were anti-slave right off the rip. So yeah, then you have men doing. So you guys are always, what is it? What, I don't know what the word is. Like humanitarian and like old school, new progressive. Really is really the word I'm looking for.
I guess so, but this isn't because it's like, oh, this is the right thing to do. It was because you had to.
Out of necessity, for sure. But
there's no women around.
Right.
Someone has to cook clean. Like,
well, I'm not saying with the
this went off the rails. Amy, you showed up at the wrong time.
Yeah, you came in late, bro.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you have more to say?
Not all that much, except like, okay, so the idea of gender just being more of a fluid thing in California can kind of trace its roots back to the Gold Rush.
That's what I'm saying. You guys have always been progressive.
Yeah, but again, not because we're like, oh, we're better at it. It's just that's kind of how the chips.
Well, I mean, I think that proves that you probably are better at it. You've been doing it the longest.
I guess so.
That's experience, bro.
Actually, no. Like in Shakespeare plays, you had boys playing.
That was in England. That wasn't here in America.
Right, I'm just saying,
where hypermasculinity is a big thing in this country.
Okay, whatever. So. Anyway, just to end off here, the whole concept of the California dream comes from the Gold Rush. California was perceived as a place of new beginnings where great wealth could reward hard work and good luck. So from the Gold Rush to the movie industry, the whole concept of California as a state kind of gets its beginnings here. So historian H.W. Brands noted that in the years after the Gold Rush, the California dream spread across the nation. Quote, the old American dream was the dream of the Puritans, of Benjamin Franklin's Poor Richard, of men and women content to accumulate their modest fortunes a little at a time, year by year by year. The new dream was the dream of instant wealth, won in a twinkling by audacity and good luck. This golden dream became a prominent part of the American psyche only after Sutter's Mill. So I think that's a good place to stop it. I
have 2 questions before you go.
Shoot.
One is, what is a California delicacy, like a dish? Especially something you love too, that is like really just a California thing?
Okay, so this isn't like, okay, when you come to California and you have the New Yorkers who come here and you're like, your pizza's worse. I'm like, I get it. All right. Our tacos beat the shit out of yours.
Texas tacos?
What?
Texas tacos?
Are just LA tacos are just better.
I'm gonna have to put that to the test one day, man.
I mean,
Texas got some tacos too. That is the thing, but I gotta give it. I mean, I imagine y'all probably very close, if not, like it's probably really like because you guys are deeply ingrained in Mexican culture as well. So I won't say, but I will say Whataburger beats In-N-Out any day, though. I will say that. But your tacos, I don't know. I got to go there and try them first.
Yeah.
I will say Texas tacos are the shit.
Yeah, because like a lot of the things that you would associate with burritos, tacos, are like Mexican or just Spanish, right?
We got Tex-Mex. We have a whole ass our
Yeah.
own thing. Y'all got Cali-Mex. That's not a thing.
Things born in California, right? That you can tie to it. I think California roll. We got a thing, an entire like.
I have California rolls are good. I would
Yeah.
love to have a true California one.
The French dip sandwich was invented here.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's delicious, actually.
yeah. But a lot of other stuff like iconic California food. Sourdough bread is not California. That's just food,
Yeah, that was invented in Italy, like northern Italy,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm not even sure why it says that.
Sourdough sandwiches, I think, are a thing in California, but it wasn't invented there.
Maybe. So wait, what was the other question?
Oh, what is your I'm only asking this question because I'm gonna give mine next episode.
Yeah.
What is the state song? What is the do you know it? Like the state anthem or whatever the fuck?
Do we I don't know.
Oh, California or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Y'all even have one? Y'all aren't real
I love you, California.
California dreaming.
Nah.
Hotel California.
Now here I'll send it to you.
Texas is a legitimate anthem.
It would. I mean, like you guys. What's
they made us sing it every year, for like at the end of the school year, as a part of the pep rallies and all that. Deep in the heart of Texas. It's like,
all right, here I send it to you in chat. But the yeah, we just don't have that kind of.
Y'all aren't real big on like.
I think because
patriotism and all that.
Yeah,
it's not really a word, but nationalism.
For Californians, it's mostly people who came here, and not about I'm from California.
It's always been that way too, right? Like we just talked about.
Yeah, like calling yourself an Angelino, which I fucking hate that word, but calling yourself that, like people will be here for like 5 years and then call them that. I'm like, no. It's always frustrating as a comedian talking to other people, and they're like, "So where are you from?" I'm like, "Here." They're like, "No, where are you from?" I'm like,
"Where are you really from?"
"Here. I'm from LA." So I did time mixed up. Sorry, guys. Atlas, when are you going to cover some Louisiana history? I'm not opposed to it.
History in Louisiana.
Do you know anything about Louisiana history?
My mom knows everything there is to know about Louisiana.
Go pick her brain, and then we can do that for another one. Good suggestion, Amy.
I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen to it.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe watch Princess and the Frog or something.
There you go.
My name's Raymo. Everyone call me Ray. So
we'll
yeah,
Louisiana eventually. We got to cover the Louisiana Purchase and all that.
Yeah.
Some point.
Yeah. So yeah, for thanks everybody for listening on the California Gold Rush and why we're such a punchable state.
I had dudes dressed up like women back then,
That's what you do. Anyway, you can follow me at Atlas Novak over here in all the places. My YouTube channel is The Epileptic Comic. It's mostly just sketches and stuff. Other podcasts with Dino the Genetic Marvel, and Cole comes on a lot. There you go. It's Generation Dan. That's on every Friday. And if you're listening to this, you're on Generation Dan's RSS feed, so you already know what's up. How about you, good sir?
Yeah, you can check me out on this show every other Monday, and you can catch me tomorrow and every Tuesday doing Hammer to Cheese.
Hell yeah!
And
that's such a great logo.
I know, right? You gotta give Dino his props. I forgot. I messed up and forgot Sketched Out. But yeah, you can catch this Wednesday and every other Wednesday with me and our buddy Kyle Petrila. I always say his name wrong. I know it, and I can say it wrong every time. But we do Sketched Out, where we interview a guest, talk about their sketches. Atlas, we should have you on at some point because you got some good sketches. Whenever you got the time. I know summertime's up and whatnot here pretty soon.
Yes. This week and next week are pretty bad for me, but in the week.
Yeah, no rush. We got the next couple of weeks figured out anyway. So, every other Saturday you can catch me and my son do Every Other Weekend Meals. And every Saturday, me and my sister on The Greatest Goddamn Show on air. And then also catch Dino and Kyle do Life of Giants. I think they were airing just during this. So we got to go smooth that over because I think they're mad at us because they know they can't compete. Because me and Atlas are way better. We're the awesome ones. Peace out, though, guys.
All right.
Later.
Bye, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.